And we are back to another lovely evening of entertainment banter. Matthew Curtis is over here next to me.
Sitting right by you, handsome.
We know you're not. And I'm Joel.
Redo?
No, we're going, dog. Redo.
We're going.
There's no
All right,
redo.
so
We'll get that in
next to
editing.
me.
We'll get that in post.
All right. Oh yeah, we're never gonna edit these. You kidding me? That's what makes it banter.
Nope. Go
Have
on.
a shot. Okay, so tonight's topic, we wanted to talk about the gimmicks of Hollywood, particularly the movie industry, because let's face it, that's all we talk about is movies. But
Yeah, we're awful people.
Yeah, if you look back at the history of movie making, now granted, it's hard to come up with an original idea these days because, let's be honest, a lot of ideas have been thrown out at us. But Hollywood still needs to make their buck. So back in the day, a movie would come out and be great, and that would be the end of it. Then what happened was they started to do the remake. And then I would say occasionally, like in the late 70s, early 80s, the new gimmick was, well, if a movie was popular, let's make it a trilogy. And then later down the road, we still had the occasional remake, but then it became, instead of a trilogy, we had to start adding to trilogies. So it was like Die Hard 4, Die Hard 5, We had to piggyback off of old trilogies that everyone enjoyed because we couldn't come up with anything new.
But
so now,
recreate it in some way.
Right. So now, then it was like the prequels. Where we're gonna tell alternate versions of the stories of that same stories that we've all grown to love over the past couple decades. And then finally, we've got now where we've been doing same thing. We've been reinventing the wheel, as it were. How many times have we seen an X-Men movie done differently? How many times Fantastic Four, Spider-Man? So now it's
how many times are you going to see Bruce Wayne's origin story?
Exactly, Batman, all those stories. But I will say this: the most recent gimmick, the one that we're currently in right now, is the remakes of a movie. However, they're done in such a fashion that they are still technically a new movie, but they have all the recipe of the original movies. So bear with me on this. So it's basically, we're going to do Star Wars Episode 7. A lot of people compare it to A New Hope because it has a bunch of stuff. Me being a Star Wars nerd, I would say it's got more than just A New Hope in it. But for the sake of this discussion, I'm going to say yes.
It's got the same chemistry.
You're flying an X-Wing through a trench, you're blowing up something big planet. You're meeting young people that are lost in the wilderness and are now found. You've got Creed, which is Rocky. So, you've got a young guy who learns to fight by an old boxer and comes from nowhere and becomes something or close to something. You have Prometheus, where basically it's an alien movie, especially the new one that came out. The name of it is escaping me right now, but the sequel to Prometheus, It just came out. But anyways, you literally have a crew on a ship in space, and once again, a girl heroine, and she's fighting an alien. What a surprise! Trying to think of what else. Star Trek is a little tricky, but it's the same thing. It's the only thing that's kind of clever is they put it in an alternate universe, but really it's the same thing. You meet the crew for the first time. They still fight Khan. They do all the same stuff that the other crew did with some slight alterations. So basically, Jurassic Park, Jurassic World. You got two kids possibly going through a divorce, being sent to an island that's a theme park full of dinosaurs. I mean, it's literally straight up verbatim the same stuff. And so I just find it interesting.
Jumanji's a new one.
What's that, buddy?
Jumanji is a new one.
Oh, I didn't even know they were doing that.
Yeah, they're calling it a sequel, but it's totally a reboot.
See, well, there you go.
With The Rock
so
and Kevin Hart.
So I just thought it was interesting how Hollywood's way of basically, they reinvent the wheel that invents the wheel, if that makes any sense. I mean, because these franchises are the same franchise. The ones that I've listed, Rocky's been around forever. You know, Aliens have been around forever.
Yes.
Star Wars has been around forever.
Yes.
You know, Star Trek's been around forever. They've gone through the sequel side of things. They've gone through the reboot side of things, and now they're just redoing the same original movies.
Where's Jaws?
Just telling. What's that?
Where's Jaws?
Actually, it might be coming. You never know.
It's true.
Well, would that be Sharknado?
Gross. No.
So, anyways, I don't know. So I just thought it was interesting, and I just wanted your input on it because I wonder if the general public is picking up on this because they go to the movies and they're like, oh, I kind of like this, and maybe they don't quite know why. And it's because they're the same movies, just with a twist.
I don't know. Like they're like the same movie. They're sequels though. They're calling them sequels, but they're using the same recipe or chemistry they used to try to get the first one going. The thing is, I feel like some of them are successful and some of them are not, and others are found out to be like, oh, this is just like the old movie again, trying to get that extra dollar from us, just changing the names and changing some characters and changing like just where the pop-ups are and everything like that. But they don't change the plot. Like Jurassic World,
right.
You brought that up. Jurassic Park and Jurassic World are very similar. They're trying to reboot the franchise with a sequel, but with a new audience and new people. But I feel like Jurassic Park was not a creature feature, yet Jurassic World was definitely a creature feature, where they used that new dinosaur they created to be like the Velociraptor and the T-Rex, while in Jurassic Park, the Velociraptors were the main antagonists in that. Well, if you want to get even more trickier, probably John Hammond was the antagonist, how he created the park and all that. You can get really philosophical on that. But the basics, when you look at it, the raptors are trying to kill them and they keep bringing them back. But they kept showing other dinosaurs killing people. The Spitter, the Dilophosaurus killing Dennis.
That's right, you got a variety.
The young Tyrannosaurus Rex was in there. They had, the large T-Rex. They had, variety. But in Jurassic World, you did not. So I feel like they focused a lot on the creature. So it didn't really feel like... It felt like it. And they actually gave homage to the old one. Remember they even showed that a little bit?
Yes, they did.
Which was great. And that sells. That sells. In the world we are in today, I feel like shit like that sells just because of the nostalgia of it. When you see something like that from the past, like they're going with something new and they're trying to recreate it. Because I hear they're making another Jurassic World 2 or whatever. So it's just like they're bringing that nostalgia, and our generation right now, the millennial / Generation X, are very. Those are two different generations, just their age groups. They're very about nostalgia, about the past, and they like vintage, and they're all into like the hipster, and we want young cool and all that. And I feel like the movies are reading into that, feeding into it, and that's what's happening. That's why we're getting movies like this now, because Hollywood's finding that these are for sure blockbusters. Jurassic World made money.
You brought that up. That's actually a really great point, because I didn't think about that aspect as much, but now that I'm thinking about it, that's a great point, because there's a huge gap between the generations that grew up with the movies in the 80s, especially the trilogies like Back to the Future, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, that kind of stuff, Aliens, and what you would call the millennial generation, and that would be anything Power Rangers on, you know what I'm saying? And what's interesting about what you said is, obviously, there's a gap between parents and their children. So, the parents are going to want their children to watch what they grew up watching and so forth. And so when you watch Star Wars and you have an old Han Solo, the old generation appreciates it, while the new generation is being introduced to a new kind of all the other characters.
It's like stepping aside for the new.
And Star Trek, same thing. They threw in old Spock, even though there was a new Spock in the movie.
They didn't really. They explained that very well. They used like an alternate universe or dimension. Yes. They did that really well.
But like you mentioned, though, for the fan base, it was intelligent because it drew in the older audience for the old Spock, but then the younger generation got drawn in for all the new characters,
And it
or
was
new
like
actors, I should say.
they weren't spitting on the old; they were embracing the old and introducing new. So it was almost like
Right.
they weaned you on to this new character that's going to play this character.
And that's what I'm saying. I think Star Wars, Star Trek, and a little bit of Jurassic World, like you said, because they didn't ignore the past history of Jurassic Park.
Mm-hmm.
I think all are perfect examples of that. I think it's almost like the old movies are the gateway drug for the new generation. So you got to throw in an old character or an old reference in order for it to be picked up by the new generation.
Correct.
I have a question for you. Where do you think Terminator falls into place in all this? Because you've had sequels, you've had sequels, and you've had extra sequels added that weren't as good. You've had prequels, and then you've had like new versions. They're all over the place.
But it's like not new versions. They're still using the same Terminator. The T-100 is still Arnold Schwarzenegger. They're still using that mold.
Right.
Like in every Terminator movie, there was a likeness of Arnold.
Yes.
Until he came back in the new Genesis, which was, I don't know. Terminator's a hard one because we're talking about they can almost like keep rebooting it and keep doing new things with it just because they can keep playing with the timeline bullshit that they have going on. Because you in a lot of time back to time traveling movies, you're going to talk about, or you're going to always mention in the movie about different timelines and creating something new, and like this could be the vortex of the universe and yada yada yada. So I think Terminator still lies in the fact that they're rebooting it, but in like just like the other movies, they're keeping it in line. They're trying to keep it no canon for it, but I mean, I feel like they didn't do just as good of a job. I thought the Christian Bale one that they did was actually really good. I think it was Terminator Salvation. Wasn't too bad of a movie. But there's so much canon fodder.
And it was implied that was going to continue. But
yeah,
do you think what's his face's death was a result of that? The guy that played his father.
Who played?
He was he played Chekhov in the new Star Trek movies. I'm drawing a blank.
But he died. He was John Connor's. Oh right, they killed him off in the newest one, right? Genesis.
No, well, the actor himself actually passed away.
Oh,
and I'm wondering if that's what ruins Salvation, because that had a lot of potential.
He died a lot after Salvation.
Yeah.
By the way,
yeah.
But I do not know what they were thinking. I mean, a lot of times when an actor dies, they try to write him out or do something special with it, like Fast and the Furious. I mean. Did you know there's 8 fucking Fast and the Furious movies?
Yeah, well, that's another perfect example.
Holy crap.
You know what? That's
but they're not rebooting
example.
it. They just keep... It was a street racer movie that turned into some kind of heist movie that shows fancy cars, and there's a lot of stunts. The stunts are cool. But Paul Walker died in the middle of making that movie, and they used his brother to act out the last few parts, and they CGI'd Paul Walker's face on it and did all that, and you couldn't tell the difference with technology these days.
Right.
So, for an actor, if an actor really does die and they need to use them and they want to create these movies, they can.
Yeah. Well, Fast and Furious is interesting because it came out with the trilogy, then it did like a prequel thing, and then then it brought it into its new light, a new era of movie. Going, they brought in the Rock character. They brought all those characters back. It's interesting. That's in and of itself, that franchise is kind of its own beast. It's not reinventing, but at the same time, it kind of is. It has all of it.
It almost seems like the improv, what they're going to do every time. They're like, well, that movie sold.
Yes.
Well, what do we continue now?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Obviously, if we throw enough random crap at it, people will just go see it.
It's true. I feel like
that's how Transformers is.
I honestly feel like they don't have a plan for any of the Fast and the Furious franchise. I feel like they had a start and beginning of the first one. It did very well. Mitsubishi wanted a part of it, so they bought the movie. So all you saw was Mitsubishi cars in that movie. And then that did very well, comparative. So then they made a third one, and then a fourth one, and then it just seemed like every time they finished the movie, they're like, well, it sold well. let's meet up and start making a new one. Like there's no pre-thought like, oh, there's an ending to my site. No, let's keep making these until we can't.
Right. It's crazy. We were talking about different movies. One movie I wanted to mention too was the Daniel Craig James Bond movies. What I found interesting about those, I would say that's an interesting group to talk about because they're obviously James Bond. Anytime they hire a new actor to play Bond, it's kind of like a reboot. But at the same time, his story was the beginning of Bond. So in a way, it's like a prequel. And then, but the way he did those movies, it was fresh because there was well-written jokes into the storylines where they still used old technology for the most recent and most sophisticated Bond. Because, as you know, with technology today, things can get hacked. There's all sorts of problems with, data. And the way they combated it in that movie was they kind of went a little old school, which I thought was interesting. So the old school, storytelling back in the day, if you had a knife in your shoe, that was supposed to be state of the art, or a phone in your shoe, like, get smart, those kind of jokes. But really, because technology was so advanced and so easily to hack, the older technology actually is the better technology, which I thought was kind of funny for those Daniel Craig Bond movies. And it worked because that was the original storytelling. So they made old stories seem retro and new based on our current modern civilization, which I thought was very interesting.
Daniel Craig. I appreciate the Craig. I didn't see the last.
He's good.
I don't think I saw the last James Bond though.
The last one was I think it was Skyfall. It was about his family. It was
Solace, wasn't it?
What was it?
Quantum Solace?
No. Skyfall was the last one.
Maybe I didn't see the last
right?
two. How many movies did he make? He make 4 of them? 3? 4?
I think he made oh crap! I don't remember now.
Oh well.
It was Casino Royale. And then, what was one you said?
I thought there was Casino Royale, Skyfall, then Quantum Solace. That's what I thought.
Quantum Solace is the second one, so Skyfall was the third.
Yeah? You betting on that?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty confident. I can ask a friend, but you're wrong.
You can ask a friend, but I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Spectre!
Spectre was the last one.
It did go Casino Royale, Quantum Solace, Skyfall, and then Spectre.
Spectre, you're right. And that's how they ended it, was Spectre. I forgot all about Spectre.
So I was wrong.
So 4 movies.
4 movies. I knew there was 4.
So
it felt like there was 4. Okay.
Is there any franchise that I haven't mentioned that fits these categories and how the gimmicks of Hollywood, how they're trying to reinvent the wheel, so to speak? Let me ask you this. Is there anybody in Hollywood nowadays that you can say feels original?
No.
Like, some people would argue that M. Shyamalan, whatever his name is, Sixth Sense guy, would be one of those types that might be kind of an original director or writer.
I try to look at original that hits big. Like, there are a lot of original movies out there that never make it anywhere, and a lot of people never get publicity on it. A lot of them end up in the Academy, and people are like, what movie is this? And they're usually based off true stories. So it's really hard. M. Night Shyamalan, I believe, does have an original thought, and his movies always were original. They were all made by him, but they never ended well. He never knew how to make an ending. He knew how to start it, never knew how to finish it. Or he thought, what a twist! His twists were going to finish it and be great, but no, they were awful. So, yeah, he may be the one and the only original thoughts out there. I don't know. There may be others.
Well, you can
so
cheat.
It's difficult.
You can cheat and add in the book world, because like right now, especially women authors like Divergence,
Books
Harry
don't count.
Potter.
Books don't count.
Yeah. Okay. So
Because you're taking
we make.
you're taking an original story on a book, on a novel, and you're making it into a movie. So it's not
Right.
like Hollywood like, hey, let's make a movie out of this. No, they were like, that's a great book. That needs to be a movie. So
Right.
it's still a hard process to bring it to a movie and make it a great movie, of course. But to say an original thought, it's really hard to say that there is one. I mean, the most successful movies right now to date are Marvel movies. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot
But
of
again, that's.
tons of comic book movies.
Yeah. Well, technically, those are books, right? So
They
that
are.
doesn't count.
They don't count.
Like Star Wars was an original thought. Indiana
It
Jones
was.
was an original thought.
It was.
Jaws was an original
It
thought.
was.
E.T. was an original thought. I would say Rocky was an original thought. I think that's what's so hard about it is. I was going to jokingly say Avatar. What would you think? I mean, we make fun of it because, like,
No,
it's Pocahontas.
it's Dancing with
Wolves.
Wolves.
Whatever.
It's an original idea of the locations and creatures, and those are the original thoughts, ideas inside the movie. But the movie itself is not an original thought. It is Dancing with Wolves. But that's the tricky
right.
part. That is the tricky part. There's only, according to some people in the drama world, there's only 7 types of plots you can have.
Right.
Only
right.
7. And all the movies we have, all the television shows are based off these 7 plots and some kind of denomination of them.
Yes.
So to get something original, it'd be really hard. I think a lot of the original stuff we're getting right now are on television. Game of Thrones, I know, was a book, but you got like House of Cards is based off of the British show House of Cards, the same kind of thing.
Right.
But
Right.
you're getting these new things that are about, instead of pushing a story along, this is what I'm finding interesting nowadays. You're not getting stories now on TV that are pushing the story along, more or less. You're getting character development, situations where it can create the character into more what they are, to more what they can be or what they will be. So, like, that's the more entertaining thing on TV right now, seeing what character development does. What does this scenario does to this person? Instead of saying, this scenario is happening, we're going to say X. Person X is in this scenario Y. But when scenario Y turns into scenario Z, what does happen to person X? What happens to
Right.
it? And that's what the world we're seeing. We're not seeing, like, a single and start to finish story now. They're trying to continue everything. And that's going with the Marvel Universe. That's going with, The Walking Dead. That's going with Game of Thrones. Breaking Bad was a great one. You're seeing like a character develop in these situations, these scenarios that you almost can relate to them. I mean, even as simple as and exciting as Marvel is, they're taking comic book characters, but still adding that sense of character development. Cartoons do it too. I mean, we talked about Dragon Ball Z, and a lot of times you see a certain character like Goku through all of Dragon Ball, pretty much all of Dragon Ball Z, even Super, I would say. He does not develop that much. It's the same character. But there are characters around him that develop a lot, and that's more interesting. It makes it more of an interesting story, more interesting show to watch.
Right. So you're saying that television is actually doing a better job right now in the industry
100%.
than you would say for movies.
Yes. I say that too, and it's obvious that the actors are seeing it too, because people are lining up to do original TV series on Netflix or Hulu or Amazon because of that. And they're taking pay cuts. Like, Netflix does not pay residuals.
Right.
So former actors are taking pay cuts. Like, Kevin Spacey took a pay cut to do House of Cards. I'm sure he made a ton of money off of it still, but since
I think he's also a producer, though. He produces
now.
a lot.
Well, as soon as your show, if you're a star of a show, and it's already 2-3 seasons in, you better be a producer at that point.
Yeah, I think he was, though, from the start.
Maybe.
I was trying to. You mentioned it. What was the? So terrible right now. Neil Patrick Harris. I think he liked the story so much of the.
How You Met Your Mother.
No. It's on Netflix. This original series, Unfortunate Events.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
I think he produced that and stars in it because I think he himself enjoyed it. I mean, I could have sworn I'd heard an interview of him saying that himself. Copy that. So, anyway, the gimmick of Hollywood is right now in this day and age, in my opinion, they're just taking that golden age. It's not golden age because it's not really the golden age of cinema, but I would say the reinvention of movies in the 80s and late 70s, early 80s. To me, those movies were so profound and so original that, and honestly, it's George Lucas, Steven Spielberg are the ones to thank for those movies,
Ron
for
Howard.
the majority of them. And Ron Howard, yeah. And Willow, that's another example. George Lucas wrote Willow. That was an original story. That wasn't, The Hobbit or anything like that. It's hard to Howard the Duck. I mean, it's like, I don't know. I mean, this day and age, it's almost like Hollywood's too scared to gamble on that stuff. I mean,
they've been scared for the last 10 years, I think. I've had this conversation with many friends about it, and it seems like they're scared to gamble.
Yeah.
And yet you get movies like the Emoji Movie and Angry Birds the movie. Like, why they waste the money on that? I think they're going to make a quick dollar, and that's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, it is cheaper to make those types of movies now than it was back in the day, but I think, unfortunately, Hollywood and their... It's interesting because I know we're running low on time, but I got to tell you, like, one of my favorite movies as a child, and even as a grown adult, is Transformers, the animated movie. I watched it again, like, 2 nights ago, and I listened to the commentary of the producers at the time, the behind-the-scenes producers. And at the time, they were doing their job. They had to destroy characters to sell new characters, in toy markets and everything else. That was their job. Okay, get rid of these characters. We got to introduce these new toys, so write these characters in. And they didn't think anything of it. Then what happens is the characters they killed off broke children's hearts all across America. Like, it literally was, it damaged them. They were upset. They were crying. And at the time, the producers were thinking, well, I wasn't thinking about their feelings. I was thinking about selling these toys. And what's interesting is because their mindset was on, I wouldn't say greed, but on a product, they didn't really care about the story in that aspect. They're like, we need to sell product, so write the story to sell product. They didn't think what would happen if kids saw their favorite characters die. And it was traumatic. But what's funny is it made for good storytelling. People die. Now in this day and age, I feel like Hollywood caters to the latter. They cater to, whoa, we can't kill off Pikachu. We can't do this or that. If we do that, we'll lose that generation and all their business. So what's the generation right now? It's millennials. What do millennials do? Nothing except stay on their phones. And so as a result, it's like emojis are their thing. That is their thing. So the studio is trying to cater to them as opposed to just writing good stories. Does that make sense? Like, it's funny how in the past it used to be a marketing thing. Like, if they were going to start marketing new emojis or something, that'd be one thing. But they're just trying to cater to the millennials.
Trying to make that dollar.
I mean, the irony is they're going to probably watch that movie on their phones. Not even go to the theaters.
They're not going to watch it. It's awful.
Yeah. That's our generation, I think.
Maybe.
Anyways, so do you have any final thoughts?
I had one. I was going to ask you a question to finish it off, but that came and went. I don't know what question it was. Probably someone with Hollywood.
You're really angry about emojis.
I was, but I feel like the question I was going to ask you had something like, what do you think the future of Hollywood is in store, or do you think?
Well,
do you think we'll go back to original thoughts? I mean,
writing-wise, it's going to be very challenging. I think their gimmicks are always. Another thing they've tried in the past is 3D. Red, blue glasses.
No, hold on.
They've tried
hold on.
CinemaScope.
Hold on.
I
remember my question.
Okay, go for it.
With today's Hollywood views right now, and them recreating and trying to recapture what they had in the past, do you believe that Hollywood is just trying to recapture? No, that wasn't the question. I just lost it again. Thanks a lot.
Well,
I had it, but you kept talking.
Are Are you trying to say that they're trying to get back some of the stuff that they lost? Because what I will say, the only glimmer of hope, no irony there with Star Wars: A New Hope, is that you have people in our generation that grew up watching these great movies like Indiana Jones, Back to the Future.
There it is.
They have an opportunity now to get us back on track.
I'm ignoring you right now,
Abrams,
and I'm going to re-listen to this later, so keep talking.
Okay, but J.J. Abrams basically is one of those individuals I feel like grew up with the same stuff that we did and recognizes the garbage that is Hollywood, and that maybe, just maybe, they'll have an opportunity to revitalize the franchise. That's why I thought it was kind of clever how there's this recent gimmick is more about paying tribute to the past, but pounding or laying the foundation for the future. You know, both generations enjoyed Star Trek, Star Wars, you know, the movies that he's had his hands in. I feel, you take something like, for example, Michael Bay, who probably never knew what Transformers was until they came up to him. Those movies are just friggin' awful. Like, each story gets worse and worse and worse. And as a Transformers nerd, I can tell you, I see where he's cutting and pasting from all these different magazines to make one story, but it does not make sense, and it is awful. It's just absolutely awful. Same thing with the Ninja Turtles. It's like, you know, they're going out of their way to really screw up something that was done well. X-Men, we can go on and on.
All right.
But anyways.
This is our final thought, my last question. You don't have to answer it. We could just leave it on this question. But do you think the reason why a lot of these filmmakers want to recreate or further or anything with their old movies because they didn't have the technology to do what they want back then, and now today they can do a lot more with it?
I'll quote a phrase from Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility. I would say yes to that question that you said. Yes, now that they have the capability. Same thing with what's his face in Jurassic Park. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. I think it's a fine line. When you start CGIing actors that are dead, or you start CGIing actors to look younger, it's dangerous, you know, in my opinion. But I think overall, yes. I think it's you have the technology to make it amazing. Why not? Sure. Just know that you have to, just like at Jurassic Park, the way you describe it, you're standing on the shoulders of people who made these great things, and you're taking the next step. You didn't earn it. You didn't create an X-Wing. You know what an X-Wing is. You know what you'd like to see it do. So just remember that when you remember how they were originally created, and stay as true to that as you possibly can when you take it to the next step, if that makes any sense. Real quick, I hate to do it, but Marvel does it right. I appreciated, I just watched Civil War again, and the scene with Iron Man as a younger man arguing with his father in the holographic simulation at MIT, I appreciated that work that they did to make him look younger. But even in that story, they wrote it in as a hologram. So it's an image recreated. It wasn't him really being there. So it was a clever way to show us their potential, show us a great story, but also say, hey, it's not real. And I thought that was clever. Whereas Rogue One, you see Leia, she looks like a piece of artwork from a video game, and we're supposed to accept that's the real Leia.
Hey, I didn't see that movie yet, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, spoiler alert, you see Leia.
Oh, okay. Asshole.
So, anyways, so that's that.
It's a good note to land on. That's a good note. That was really loud.
Yeah.
Sorry if I just woke you up in your car, or home, or bathroom, or wherever you are.
Yeah. Wherever you are, listen, space.
But we're going to end this on that, and we'll go with that guy is Matt talking to you, and I'm Joel Guy, and we're done.
If you have nothing better to do, go ahead and listen to the next one.